book is a romantic comedy, and it also deals with some emotional topics. However, the main character is so insufferable. You're about to watch me read One Star Romance by Laura Hankin. I will be updating you periodically with my thoughts as I'm reading the book. I think I do have pretty high expectations for this book. I'm not entirely sure why, but I don't know. The vibes seem like it's probably going to be pretty good. I've never read anything from this author, but the whole premise sounds really fun. It's like a rom-com. You can't really go wrong with the rom-com, and I'm pretty sure it's like enemies to lovers, so that's exciting as well. So from my understanding, One Star Romance follows Natalie and Rob, and she is an author and he is like an academic guy who studies like linguistics or something. And so she publishes a book and he gives it a 1-star review. And tensions must come along because they are like best man and maid of honor at their best friend's weddings, but he gave her a 1-star review. So she's definitely like, I imagine she's probably pretty annoyed at that. Like, being like, oh, that's the guy who gave me a 1-star review. I don't want to talk with him. I don't want to be his friend. I don't want to associate with him. But them being not obviously like the most important, but the second most important people in a wedding, they're going to have to like work together and all of that good stuff. So it kind of seems like it might be a similar dynamic to How to End a Love Story, where they were working together, but they hated each other, and then eventually they got to know each other a little bit better, and they're like, oh, this person's not that bad, actually. So that's kind of like what I expect, and I also expect it just to be really, really funny, and that's kind of how I understand the premise of this book. So without further ado, let's read a 1-star romance. But wait! We know the drill. This dust cover has got to come off first. I'm going to say it's probably going to be like a blue cover underneath, and then because it's a book of the month book, it's going to have like a little stamp on it. Let's see. It is blue and yellow. So let's read the book for real now. So I'm now a little bit more than 100 pages into 1-star romance, and here are my thoughts so far. I'm definitely enjoying this book, and it's kind of given Happy Place vibes, except if Happy Place was like a little bit better, I think is a good way to put it. Our main characters are Natalie and Rob, and Natalie is basically the maid of honor for her best friend Gabby, and the thing is that she does not like Gabby's fiance. She thinks that she deserves better than him, and then Rob is her Gabby's fiance's best friend, and so that's kind of like how they meet, and they seem to really be hitting it off, and they're like, yeah, like this is pretty cool. Obviously nothing happens, but like they just kind of have those like vibes, and they hang out for a little bit throughout that time when they first meet, and then Rob goes back to wherever it is that he lives, but he doesn't live in the same area as Natalie and Gabby and friends, and so they'll kind of text occasionally about like maid of honor and best man kind of stuff. And then comes the day of the wedding, like 2 years later, and Natalie's like, oh, maybe I'll hook up with this Rob guy. We'll find out, because like she's kind of hot, and they seem like they had a pretty good vibe. But then when they talk again, he doesn't seem like the same guy. Like, he's super cold, he's really dismissive and stuff, and she's like, what is going on? Like, that's not the same guy that I remember. And then after some events ensue, she finds out that he left her that 1-star review on her novel because he didn't like that it felt like she was basically making fun of his best friend and turned him into a character in her book. And so they now hate each other, and so they don't want to associate with each other. They have a big fight and all that stuff. And to be fair, like, Natalie is a pretty self-centered. Her story that she wrote was just based on what was happening with her and Gabby at that time, which Gabby's her best friend, who I think she's low-key in love with, to be honest. And she felt incredibly abandoned, and she really hated the guy that Gabby is with, and she feels like he's taken her away from him, like taken her away from her, and that he's just like some kind of stuck up, lame guy who grew up with everything and never had to worry about money because his parents would take care of it, and that he just isn't right for her, and that she's always been hoping that they would break up, and then she's just trying to, like, she just doesn't, the vibes just aren't right. And so obviously Rob, being this guy's best friend, is like really offended when he sees that kind of like depiction in her book that she claims she didn't do, but subconsciously like she did do it. So I can definitely see why he would be mad at her, and I really hope that her character does develop, because she is very self-reliant on her best friend, and she just seems kind of mean to everybody else around her. So this is where now it's kind of reminding me of Happy Place, because a couple years pass again since that event, since the marriage, and Gabby wants to invite Natalie to spend the weekend at the lake with her and her fiance and all these people, just to have like a chill, fun time to celebrate her fiance getting his dream job. And Natalie doesn't want to go because Rob is gonna go, and she doesn't like the fiance, but eventually she's like, you know what, I'm gonna do it, because she's waiting to hear back about her second book deal. And this is where it reminds me of Happy Place, because it's all these people at a lake, and the two characters pretended not to be like enemies, because nobody knows that they're like enemies right now, and they're trying to get them to get together. So it's a really fun and interesting dynamic. So I'm excited to see like where that's going to go, and I'm really just like, the writing is really good. I'm really immersed into it, and the characters are very realistic, so very excited for what's gonna come next. So I'm gonna continue to read one-star romance. I will update you around the halfway mark or a little bit more towards the end, and so I will see you then. I am now definitely more than halfway through one-star romance, and oh my goodness. Okay, this book, I have so many things I want to say about this book. The first thing that I want to say is that the characters in this book feel so real that at one point, like when I paused reading, I was like, wait, this is a book I'm reading. Like, these aren't real people. And I was just like so into it, and it just made so much sense, and I was just like so captivated and like hooked and gripped into the story. And I was like, whoa, how are these not real people? I'm very sad about this, that they are not real people. The second thing is that this book keeps going where I am not expecting. I thought that when we got to that kind of like lake area, that it was going to be more like Happy Place by Emily Henry. But that was just like a couple of chapters. The book doesn't take place at this lake. This book is actually following multiple years with different events where Natalie and Rob come into contact because there's some event that their mutual friends are holding. And so it's so interesting, because like stuff happens and then it's like a year and a half later, and then it's like, oh, they're in this kind of situation now. A year later, oh, they're in this situation now. And so it's really, really cool, especially the way that it's like paced and how the characters are growing up in these new different types of parts where like multiple years have passed. So at the beginning, Natalie's character is like really selfish, and honestly, I didn't really like her at all. But now she's in her 30s and she's more mature. She's grown a lot as a character. She's more responsible. She's learned to be less selfish, be more selfless. And it's just really great to follow these characters. And the whole underlying theme of Natalie's story is that you don't need to have that perfect life in a set timeline, because Natalie's constantly like, I need to like have my career, I need to be published by this point, I need to be married at this point, I need to have kids at this point, like all of this stuff. But it doesn't really work out that way. And so she's seen people her age around her that are already succeeding, and she feels like she's behind. And so I think that's a really relatable theme for this story. And then on the flip side, the other theme is that maybe you thought you had everything that you ever wanted, but it turns out that it was not really what you wanted. It was just what other people wanted for you, or what was expected of you. And so kind of coming to terms with that as well. Like, you spent your whole life doing XYZ, Now you're in your 30s and you're like, you know what, I actually didn't want to do that, I'm not happy. And then we have, like, on the flip side, the characters who finally achieve what they wanted and are happy now when they're in, like, their 30s and stuff. So I think that it's really cool to have these two different parallels and follow these different timelines with these characters who feel so real. I wish I could say more, but I don't want to spoil it because I want you, when you're reading this book, to go through the, oh, that's what the story's about. Oh, wait, oh, it's different. There's so many cool things going on, and there's so many things that happen that would be spoilers if I explain them to you, so I can't. But let's just say there's a lot of real emotional family and friend events that happen in this book that really just makes it feel like real life. So I'm going to continue to read One Star Romance, which is definitely not a one-star romance, and I will update you when I finish the book, so I will see you then. I just finished Laura Hankin's One Star Romance, and this was definitely an enjoyable read. This book was so well written. I have never read anything from this author, but the way that she just, like, captivated me with her beautiful words, I definitely want to read more of her books. All of her characters were super realistic, they were super real, so many of the situations made sense. Everything just made a lot of sense, except, in my opinion, Natalie and Rob's relationship. And I just feel bad for the guy because I don't like Natalie as a character. Natalie is the biggest problem with the book. I like the book a lot. I would have liked it more if Natalie wasn't in the book, because her character, even though she does grow and develop and become a less selfish person, she never takes accountability, and that always bugs me. It's like he gave her a 1-star review because she was really, really mean to his best friend, and inadvertently is, of course, being really mean to her best friend. And she never apologized for that. Like, she never had a heart-to-heart. She just kind of avoided everything for a year until, like, circumstances happened, and she was kind of, like, brought back into that and was, like, magically forgiven because of those circumstances. But her character never apologized. She never talked about it. She avoided it. She, like, acted like she wasn't the one at fault, and that really bugged me. Her being mad at him giving her a 1-star review, like, he is totally right in doing that. Like, imagine you have a best friend and you read your best friend's partner's book and you are just brutally, like, bashed throughout the entire thing. You would hate that author. You would hate that person because that person is bullying you through their book. She didn't have to do that. She could have changed up a lot of stuff. She could have removed that entirely. She just never really sees herself as the bad guy. And even, like, when she's doing, like, the TV show stuff, she's like, oh yeah, I changed it up a little bit. And she's like, I don't want to talk about the other book. Like, but she's running away from it. She's not acknowledging it. And she just bugged me so much. And Rob deserves so much better than Natalie. I just really don't like her character. And she was obsessed with Gabby. Like, it was not normal, the level of obsession that Natalie had for Gabby. Like, best friends. I think I mentioned when I was, like, halfway through the book, I was like, is she, like, low-key in love with her? I still think that she is. I think that she was way more obsessed with her friend in the level where she had way more than a crush. It was like an obsession, and, like, it was not healthy. That relationship was not healthy, and yeah, it was like, it got really weird. It was really weird, but yeah, those are pretty much my only problems with the book, though. Everything else was beautiful. It's way more than just a cute, funny, rivals to lovers, people in situations romance. It became really emotional. There was some really tough stuff that it dealt with, especially, like, as you get older and, like, your parents get older and stuff happens, and also just, like, trying to reach goals and having these preconceived notions that you're supposed to be somewhere at a certain age and you're supposed to be happy at a certain age and have all of this stuff done. And then there's also just, like, health issues that can happen as you get older and just magically come out of nowhere. And this book does a really beautiful job about that. So despite not liking our main character, who is a very spiteful woman, I still really enjoyed the book. So I will be awarding 1-star romance a total of 4.5 stars. It was almost a 5-star for me if Natalie just wasn't so insufferable. Like, I like that she did mature, I like that she did develop, but she never took accountability, and she's just too obsessed with Gabby. She needs to kind of like deal with that and that kind of stuff. But everything else is really great, and I loved getting different perspectives of different characters and how one character didn't mean for something to happen and then it did, and you just get a chapter from her perspective. You get her story, and I thought that was really well done, and the writing is beautiful. So the next book that I'm going to be reading is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is a dragon story. That's a very new dragon story. I saw it on the list of, do you like dragons? Here are some books, and I've read all of those books except for this book that was on the list. So this is what I will be reading next. So if you're interested in watching me read When the Moon Hatched, the original Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, which I'm going to be finishing the final book on the long weekend here in Canada, so that's going to be really fun. So that's coming out very soon because I'm going to be reading that book very soon. So if you're interested in watching me read any of those books or any other book that happens to be on my never-ending TBR, definitely hit the subscribe button if you haven't already and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. If you are a romance book lover, definitely hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!